Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, Adam. It's good to
I
be here.
appreciate you. Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. So where are you calling in from? Where's home base for you?
So we're out in Braunfels, Texas. One of the fastest growing cities in the U.S. the last, 5, 6 years in a row, something like that. So yeah, crazy. Construction's good out here.
Love to hear it, man. We'll get into that once we get to the civilian profession portion of the show. Before we kick off, we got a new question we talked about a little bit before recording. If your kids told you they wanted to join the military, what's your reaction? What do you say? What do you do?
You know, great question. Just because my daughter is actually leaving next month for the Marine Corps. So recently went through this, she's been talking about it. I want to say it popped up about 2 years ago. She's like, I want to be a Marine. I want to be infantry like me. And I'm like, you know what? If that's what makes you happy, so be it. And I think that's kind of been the thing with us, with me and her growth is just, it's up to you. It's your life. It's what you make of it, most importantly. But if that's what you feel your calling is, then so be it. So we're all excited about it, though. She wants to do either communications or embassy duty. So we're both trying to see how it all plays out.
That's awesome, man. Congrats to you
Thank
and
you.
to her. Yeah,
Appreciate it.
excited for her and for you. That's awesome time in life.
Yeah, we're all happy. So I couldn't be more proud. I wish there were more that answered the call. So.
Yeah, absolutely, man. All right, so I'm going to do a formal introduction. Ryan Rodriguez served 6 years of active duty service in the Marine Corps with 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines Weapons Company, Combined Anti-Armor Team. Today, Ryan is the founder of Semper Fidelis Construction and Development, working with federal and state construction, as well as large commercial to include full home remodels and new construction. Ryan is also the founder of Project Dustoff, a nonprofit to help disabled veterans and their families. Ryan is a God-fearing man and a true entrepreneur. I'm really excited to dig into and expand on every one of these kind of portions of your life, man. Let's, we're going to do a life story. So let's start with childhood, where you grew up and kind of what about childhood, led you to service.
So I was born in Austin, Texas. Grew up in New Braunfels after that. And, as a kid, I was always playing with G.I. Joes and guns. And, first time I got my hands on a BB gun, I was shooting everything I could, include my G.I. Joes, which I regret considering how much they're worth now. But that's just how it goes sometimes. And, I always wanted to join. I originally I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to wear the uniform and I wanted to shoot things, because growing up, watching cartoons, all that good stuff. My neighbor was a big impact on me back then because he ended up joining the Army. He's 4 years older than me, but we would always go to the creek, which is about a mile away from us, and we would shoot each other with BB guns. We see who can camouflage the best, and then we'd stalk each other, and I guess back then I didn't know as much of course, what I know now, but he knew more than me, and it kind of just rubbed off on me. So when I became of age, my family didn't take it well. Didn't want me to join, didn't think it was a smart thing to do. And looking back on it, I mean, it's the best thing I could have done for myself. Fast forward to 2006. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no worries. Before fast forward, I want to pause you there and kind of expand on a few things. You mentioned kind of your time growing up. I think we're relatively same age. And especially now that you have a daughter who's about to enlist, I mean, what's the difference you see in kind of information or ability to understand kind of what happens once you serve and trajectory in service?
So, people have such a stigma that the military is just a bunch of people that's not smart, or, it's not a good thing to do, or, dumb people go to die. And I hate hearing that kind of stuff because it offers so much opportunity to someone out there that's just doesn't understand change. And what I mean by that is some of the smartest people I've ever met, even to this day, being in business, were infantrymen. And it's sad to hear the stigma because even with my daughter, I went through it. I have family members, her friends, people just talking about, oh, it's, why, you're not going to get anything out of it. You have no transferable skills. And it's just like, you know, it does so much for so many people. And even the people that I had the chance to train, knowing where they came from and what they were doing when we were active duty, it changes lives. You know,
Yeah.
it makes normal people doers, and doers is what more of what this world needs.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely agreed. And I mean, you just hit on kind of like a heavy point for me, which is one of the core reasons of the show, right? Is to show veterans who are now in like civilian profession doing well, like yourself. So excited to kind of touch on that and debunk that stigma. You know, I'll try to like kind of dive in once more because I'm really curious about this scenario and you're in a unique position. Like, have you seen any difference, I guess, culturally when you between when you enlisted and were a kid versus right now?
Culturally, you know, when I enlisted, it was man, it was right around, it was right after the whole 9/11.
Mm,
Um, I felt that I was angry. The
yeah,
world just got a black eye, or United States just got a black eye, and at that time, Marine Corps wise, there was only three of us that left for the Marine Corps. We were all together as far as high school, but then to now, I mean, to see the numbers the way they are, even talking to my daughter's recruiter, it's just astounding that there's not as many Marines that are
yeah,
joining. They're barely meeting their quota,
hmm,
and that's just the Marine Corps. I can't speak for the Army or the Air Force, but I just think that this is kind of one of those situations where people need to understand what they're getting involved in. People need to
hmm,
understand that steel sharpens steel, and we need this. People, countries, we need this. It's actually not even just us anymore that needs this. It's people that rely on America to get things done and help them out when the need arises. So it's very personal to me, as you could tell, and it's something big in my family now that you do what you can for those in need, and service is a part of that. And
hmm.
service, not just in the military, service outside of the military, meaning once you get out, it doesn't end there.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully that answers that question for you.
Yeah, well said, man. We're gonna, of course, just keep expanding on these things as we go through your story. So, where I kind of stopped you was you're, 18, about to, or 17, 18, about to enlist. Your family's pushing back. What was, for other listeners who might be in that scenario, what was kind of your, I don't know, headspace mindset that allowed you to just overcome kind of the noise, right?
So I almost left when I was 18. That was the first time, and I went to the recruiter's office, didn't follow through. My family was like, "No, it's for dumb people." Then I did a sales job here in New Braunfels. It did really well with it, actually. Was got a few awards out of it, and then in 2000, God, you're taking me back. I want to say it was 2005. I enlisted in the Marine Corps. 2006, I left. Or 2006, I left for boot camp in March, and it was the best thing I ever did because at the time I was so sick of what I'd become in the civilian world. Because
Mm,
it's like you make money, you you do things, you buy the car, you get the apartment at the time because you're just out of your teens and you want to do something with your life or whatever. I was going to a junior college and I'd gotten a free scholarship there, and I just wasn't happy. I wasn't
mm.
happy with myself. I felt like there was more. Um, and I just took the leap,
That's
regardless of what
awesome.
anybody said.
Yeah,
I was frustrated with myself because realistically, I felt like I was a piece of shit.
yeah,
I'll say that to anybody that I talk to about the military because, even some of the people that I hire now, they've left me to join the military. That's how passionate I am about it because I'll talk to them and I'm like, you know what, man, you're here making 17.25 an hour, 17 to 25 an hour, you know, what are you doing? You got kids. Where are you really going to be in 5 years, 10 years?
hmm.
And don't get me wrong, it hurts when they leave. But at the same time, I feel happy because I'll talk to their parents. They'll reach out to me and say, thank you. You said something to him that hit a nerve. I don't know what you said, but it made them take action. And I guess just with my story, with me not being happy with myself and being honest with people about it, it helps other people understand that, you know what? It's okay to make these decisions regardless of what anybody says because it's your
Yeah,
life at the end of the day. So,
absolutely. Yeah, that's well said, man. And I think what doesn't get enough, I don't know, awareness. I don't really know what the right word is. Marketing around is you really create an additional kind of phase to your life, right? I mean, you go through service. whatever you were going to otherwise be doing, you still can do after service, right? I mean, you won't
Mhm.
have that ability to just add that additional experience, which gives you a million different, I don't know, positive after effects, which is what we're going to continue talking about. It gives you
Mhm.
purpose. It gives you understanding of service. So I absolutely agree, man. I think it's an amazing thing to do for your entire life, right?
Yeah.
So you are now setting up to actually enlist this time. Did you do anything pre-enlistment to prepare yourself, or you just went, kind of blind?
You know, I was I'm going to say I was blind. You think you know what you're getting into until you're actually there. And I'll be honest, when you're there, especially with Marine Corps boot camp, that was like, whoa. But I had a staff sergeant, luckily, that was infantry when I enlisted. And every time we worked out, which is once a week on a Wednesday, we were all throwing up. I mean, he just destroyed us every time. And he's like, this ain't enough. You need to be throwing up every day. I'm like, okay. So, I try to do what I can because, of course, you get out, you start gaining some weight, things like that. But when I left, I mean, I was not ready for what I went through. No one is. It doesn't matter what you do to prepare for the Marine Corps. You're not ready for it. So,
it,
but
yeah,
getting out of it, it was just like when I got out of boot camp, nothing was the same.
yeah.
I,
So walk
yeah.
us through a little bit before you get to finishing boot camp. Walk us through boot camp, right? Like, I mean, you enlist, kind of, go through those phases of enlistment through boot camp.
So you get there and it's like just yelling. I swear the next week is yelling and throwing and you know, people getting shoved. I'm sure it's changed a little bit now, but back then, I mean, you're getting jaw jacked, you're getting kicked. It don't matter. They're moving the herd, and you don't talk. I didn't talk. I probably didn't say. I probably said maybe 10 words out of the whole 3 months I was there. I mean, realistically, because you don't talk. You only speak when spoken to.
Mhm.
And yes sir, no sir. I mean, I'm not counting those words because that's pretty much all you say the whole time. Um, but it was just chaos, pure chaos that first month, and then you get used to it, and then the chaos turns to more strenuous activity, and then by phase 3, you're going to the crucible, which is the final rite of passage for the
Mhm.
Marine Corps before you're on your Eagle Globe and Anchor, and even that's like, man, everything you did. I mean, it prepares you for it, but it doesn't really prepare you for it. So all 3 months, I mean, you're just in pain. You're sore. You're throwing up. You're getting better. And when you're finally out, it's finally you look at yourself in the mirror when you actually get out, and this is who you are now. Nothing's
Mhm.
the same anymore. You're talking to people, and it's not the same conversation. Your mindset's not the same. It's about mission, and that's what's so amazing to me about the Marine Corps. Because even in getting out, I'm still mission driven. What is the
Mhm.
mission? Execute. Okay, what's the next mission? Execute. And it's kind of a sickness, to be honest with you, but I love it. So business is addicting to me for that reason. There's always something to do.
Yeah, very well said, man. That's an awesome takeaway from service that really anyone who's gone through service can leverage in wherever their civilian profession is. Um, so after boot camp, what happens next? Do you kind of understand where you're going, or do you have any choice in that?
Yeah, so you get your orders about a week before you graduate. Go to Crucible. You get a week to kind of meet your family and then get ready for your final ceremony and all that. And I was reporting to School of Infantry right after that, which is there, right down the road from San Diego, Camp Pendleton, California. And you come home for 2 weeks, you see your family, eat some nasty food, gain some weight back, and then you get to SOI, School of Infantry, excuse me, and it's like, whoa, I didn't think this was going to be harder than boot camp. And now you're carrying heavy machine guns, and you got your full combat load that you had in boot camp, and you're instead of hiking at a fast-paced walking speed, what they call a hike, you're running, and it's like this is your life. You prepare for anything. They take you a step deeper than you did in boot camp, which is getting you ready for war. And from there, from School of Infantry, we get our orders cut. Well, that was like what, 60 days ish. I got assigned to 3rd Battalion, 1st Marines, balls of the Corps, and I'll never forget that day when I graduated. They had the trucks there waiting for everybody to pick up, especially me, because School of Infantry in Camp Pendleton is known for their hills.
Mhm.
And we were just so ready to get away from these hills. Oh man, they have one hill in particular called the Microwave, right? And that and Mount Motherfucker. And these hills just destroy you. You know, you see men just, yeah, I don't even know what the word would be, but they don't look like men anymore. But
Right.
eventually you get used to it. You know what I mean? And when I was like, cool, 3-1 weapons. You know, where's this at? And then it's not even a mile down the road. So my next 3 years of my life, there I am for 3.5 years in the same hills, training in the same hills, except you get there. I got assigned to what they call Purple Heart platoon. Everybody had been shot in that platoon and was recovering from the previous trip to Iraq, which included. I mean, it was just hearing their stories, and even when they gave us the time of day to talk, it was amazing because you know you go through so much and you get to hear it, and then you get to go through it yourself. You put two and two together when you come back, and it hits differently, you know,
Mhm.
because then you understand more of why people were the way they were and how people are affected by everything you do and don't do. And that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing that even I bring to the company now. And everything I talk about is do what you say you're going to do. That's it. That's what I ask from everybody. And most importantly, the things that you don't do affect somebody else, to include our customers. So
Mhm.
going to 3-1 and then deploying to Iraq, you get there and it's like, wow, this was just as hard as boot camp and then SOI combined, because it's a totally different environment. So here you are, you're thinking your graduating is going to get easier, and no, they're just preparing you. It's just levels
Right.
to the whole platform. So going to Iraq was eye opening, to say the least. I asked for every bit of it, and I got every bit of it. And there's no real way to say this in a nice way. You kind of go a little bit crazy in a way, but
Mhm.
in a good way, to where you find yourself, where you really find out who you are inside and what you can and cannot do. And by the time we got back, we'd all been in firefights and earned our combat action ribbon. I was meritoriously promoted shortly after that, and then they sent me to squad leaders course, advanced infantry battalion, which was back at School of Infantry. I get there, and my goodness, here we are again. I'm thinking it can't get any harder than Iraq.
Right.
And I'll never forget the gentleman, Gunnery Sergeant Hussey. My goodness, he was the infantry squad leader course advisor for my team. And that was intense. That that school alone reshaped me for everything that I'd gone through. Even though every step had reshaped me, this to me is something that I hold dear, and I still have that shirt in my closet that I'm prepping to hang in my office. Uh, of what pain is in addition to Iraq,
Mhm.
because it's one thing to be able to go to combat, but it's a whole nother thing to actually lead people properly and prepare for
Mhm.
combat. And that was the next level of it. So here I am at 2 years in, meritoriously promoted to sergeant, and let's go. So loved
So I
it,
want to.
loved every bit of it.
That's awesome, man. I want to expand on a few things before we continue. So one, just going back to the training rotation in general before your deployment.
Mhm.
Anything stand out in particular, and that could even be, for example, just kind of hindsight advice for anyone who's about to join.
I'm sorry, I don't understand your question. Say that again.
So, like during your training cycle before deployment, before you got through your unit,
uh,
anything stand out in particular that you went through?
for School of Infantry before I deployed,
Mm-hmm.
um, just the man, it was just a hill, really. Freaking, yeah, Pendleton. Those hills make men. I mean, you go from hill to hill from boot camp, and you go hill to hill in something worse in infantry. And, you know, it makes everybody that I dealt with, everybody that I was in contact with who shared those pains, they were no longer the people that none of us were what we were before we even started.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to graduate boot camp, another thing to graduate SOI, another thing to go through the pains of the fleet, because in the fleet it's game on, meaning you're there with the actual combat vet who
Mm-hmm.
just came back. And you're kind of like, oh my gosh, why are they doing this to us? Why are we going through all this pain? Why are we suffering like this and going through all this? And you shut up and you do it. But
Yeah.
it all serves a purpose in the end, and that's just to make you a
Mhm.
better person, a better Marine, a better
Yeah.
Marine that most importantly makes better Marines. So
Yeah, well said. I also like how you pointed out before and kind of just doubled down on that, where it's kind of these stages that always stack up on each other. And, every time you think, like, for
yeah,
example, when you said you got back from deployment, you thought it's not getting harder. Well, there's always that psychological element that you can't really necessarily account for, I'll call it, right? When you went to sergeant school, and then that added a psychological element and added responsibility to what you're doing. So I like how you kind of created that timeline trajectory. So, you went to deployment. Was there a specific workup for it, or you just finished training and then deployed?
oh gosh, I'm glad you brought that up. Part of our workup was Bridgeport, California. More hills, bigger hills. And I'll never forget that when we went, because I'd broken my thumb and we went, and nobody cares. You get hurt, nobody cares. It's like, what are you gonna do in combat when you get hurt? It's kind of one of those things. You suck it up and you keep
Yeah.
going. And we went to Bridgeport and it was snowing. And we were doing a cold weather training, cold weather package. And we're doing this ice water crossing, it's freezing
Hmm.
and you're in the mountains. You're all trying to. They lay this rope out, and you're crawling through it, pulling yourself through, and in case most people that don't know, you start losing motor function after about 30, 45 seconds in ice cold water, and then you start. It's a mental thing. You have to fight your brain at that point to make your hands move, to make your feet move, to make your body move. But again, that's why you're going through the training. And it's everything about Bridgeport sucked. You're sleeping in the cold, you're waking up with ice, you're doing river crossings, you're in your icy clothes the rest of the day, and you're humping up hills, up and down all the time. And again, it's just to prepare you for that next level. So um, you go through the workup, your progressions, you're kind of questioning, like, my gosh, what am I going to go through in country when we actually deploy? And when you actually deploy, it's a different type of element that you go through, but they try to prepare you for the worst prior to you even getting there. So, getting to Iraq, going through everything else we'd already gone through, now you're dealing with the intense heat.
Hmm.
And you can't simulate that here in country, or in America, excuse me. So now you're fighting a totally different element, but you've already prepared your brain to go through different types of changes, CQB, close quarter combat, lots of different types of scenarios, and pain mixed into that, to make sure that you create the motor functions that you need for when you get into that combat environment.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah. Well said, man. It's waking up in cold, wet is probably the worst thing. I feel the pain in you saying that story.
yeah, yeah.
So when you get to Iraq, what was kind of your day-to-day mission set?
That was Uh, again, lots of firsts and lots of things to remember. We got into Iraq, I want to say it was about 2 or 3 in the morning their time, rolled through Haditha to get to our new CP that we had to stand up. And we have the combat engineer that we met out there that started building our berms around us, because, we kind of just find a spot and, hey, this is it. We get there, we cordon off because we found an IED right when we got there, and by cordon off, I mean we created 360, and we're mounted. So I was a gunner at the time on a Mark 19 system. So I'm a tow gunner by trade, which is an 0352, but 0331 billet is what I was holding at the time. So there I am on top of Mark 19, and we've got about, I think it was 6 trucks around us, or no, 8 trucks around us, all around it, and we that happened. I can't remember exactly what time it happened. I want to say it was about 5, 6, yeah, about 4 o'clock. Then we start hearing the music of. They play this music over there in Iraq every evening. It's their thing that they do, and that's normally around the time that people get attacked. Well, sure enough, we got attacked, um, and that was my first firefight the first day we were there. And that's, I remember seeing my buddy drop, and you see the machine gun fire coming at you, and you're like, I saw him drop, I thought he was dead. And I guess that when that feeling hits you, it's like, whoa, this is real. Um, your body goes frozen. You have to fight it. Everything that the workups that you were going through, again, it all makes sense.
Hmm.
I do my first burst with a Mark 19, I miss. Second burst, I'm on target, and that's it. Firefight's over. So my friend was alive, so that was good because we were both boots together, newbies that is, and that was my introduction to Iraq. So after that, you go out for weeks at a time on mission, different locations that the CP sends you to, and then from there you come back for 2-3 days to rest and refit, and then you go back out and do it again. At the time, as a gunner, because me being a tow gunner, we didn't have someone to man the tow system, so I was rolling between two sections of CAAT, meaning
Mm.
rather than come back and rest, I would go out again with the next unit, or CAT 2, or no, sorry, not CAT 2, Alpha and Bravo sections. I'd go out with the Bravo section, but I was part of the Alpha section, and yeah, that was kind of the day to day. You're just covering a lot of ground. We're a quick reaction force, QRF. So, something goes down and people need help. There we are with our machine guns. So
Mm.
lots of fun. I loved it. But again, looking back, originally at the time, you're tired. You're
Yeah.
always tired. It was crazy. I remember coming back from Iraq and I slept for like almost a week. I remember getting up, going to the bathroom. Uh, I didn't even really eat those first 2 days I got back. I just go to the bathroom, go back to sleep, drink water, go to the bathroom, go back to sleep, drink water. And then finally I started getting out, going to the PX, grabbing some chow and put it in my refrigerator, go back to sleep. And that was kind of the cycle.
Mm.
It's exhausting to say the
Yeah.
least. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing. That's yeah, it's a intense story, and I'm sure intense experience. So you get back from deployment. How much time do you have before you go to that sergeant course?
okay, so we're on the way back on ship to the US. Or no, I'm sorry, we refitted in Hawaii. I was only there for like a few hours, of course, because they're like, hey, you got to catch this other. I caught a flight back to go to Infantry Squad Leaders course.
Mm.
Um, so I want to say not even 2 days later, I was already back in school. No, 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 I'm sorry. We came back. They gave me a week from when I got back, and then 2 days after that, after I started feeling a little bit normal again, we were in our schooling. Um, that was a 2-month course. And what I'll never forget about that course is, again, it's a school of infantry. So you're climbing the hills again, except it's a little bit easier this time with the hills, especially
Mm.
after coming back from Iraq. But the hardest part was they're gassing you all the time. You go to sleep at night, gas, gas, gas. They're throwing CS canisters at you. You're asleep. The gas
Mhm.
hits you, everybody's sleeping, you're waking up, your eyes are swollen, you're snot nosed and can't breathe, trying to get your gas mask on and clear it, and then reset, find cordon because that's your job. That's what they're preparing for you now, is to become a leader of someone who does not lose any type of what's the word? You can't lose your composure. You
Mhm.
can't lose your head. You have to figure out how to stay focused even in the most intense conditions that are not accommodating, such as when you're gassed and you're already snot nosed and your eyes are swelling. So, totally different experience because, in Iraq, we
Mhm.
weren't getting gassed. You're just sweating and trying to drink water and sweating and, traveling all over the place. But yeah, that was a great school. Anytime I hear about any type of advanced infantry training and I hear of the people that go to it, I mean, that's the top 1% of the infantry. So it's always good to hear the stories from people that, have gotten out of the Marine Corps. But to me, it's like I said, it holds a place at home for me because that's when I
Mhm.
really learned to become a leader.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Do you think in hindsight that the, I guess, lack of transition period from deployment to this course, is that like, I can see pros and cons of it being good and bad. What's your thoughts?
From coming back so quickly and going,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, you know, they, I'll never forget, my gunny had called me in and he had said, "Hey, man, you did a great job this past," or no, I'm sorry, not hey, man, but hey, Corporal Rodriguez, you did a great job this past deployment. I really appreciate you. And I want to send you to infantry squad leader course. And I want you to know that this is an honor. And to me, I'm like, trying to hold it in because it's like, I don't even know what it means because I never even heard of it, but it sounds great. And he'd explain the top 1% of infantry. And he just said, but this is what it's going to take. You're going to miss out on some leave. You got to get out there. We're going to be shipping
Mhm.
back. We're going to go to Hawaii. You're going to miss it. We're going to refit, and you're going to be training, and then you'll get your leave after that. And he's like, but the beauty of this is what's going to help you get promoted. And yeah, I said, okay, yes, absolutely, Gunner Sergeant. And did it. So you would have loved to have had more decompression, but at the same time, it's, you got to go where the opportunity is with the Marine
Right.
Corps, because the way the Marine Corps works is, you're doing good because they award you more work, and that's their way of saying you're doing a great job. So
Hmm.
best thing I did was that, because oh man, I got out of there, and not even 2 to 3 months later, I was meritoriously promoted to sergeant. So.
Awesome. Awesome. So you finishing up with that course, what was your feeling headspace? Or is that at?
I have a photo that I have near and dear to me with those guys from that squad. We were the honor squad, and that was the way I feel about it, was that, and it's not to take away from anything else that happened with anybody else that I had gone through, but that was the legitimization of everything to me. Iraq was one thing because it was, to get the combat action ribbon, to have your guys survive. I mean, don't get me wrong, we lost some people out there within our battalion, within our company, but to be able to come back, be honored with this, because there they really teach you what leadership means, and then to go back to your unit and you have your new gunnery sergeant telling you, make it happen. This is on you.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different feeling at that point, because now I'm leading PT. Now I'm leading squads in their evolutions. Now I'm helping plan company evolutions. They had me lead company evolutions as well as company PT. I mean, it was just such a whirlwind, so fast, because I was so prepared after that. Going from what I went through in Iraq to going to infantry squad leader course, then going back to the battalion, it was like, I it's like you're Superman. I mean, realistically, because
Yeah.
you do PT in boot camp, you do PT in School of Infantry, you do PT in the fleet, you do PT in Iraq, and then you come back and do this PT with these guys that are just older guys, war dogs, true war dogs that have been through multiple combat environments. They all have a gold star in their car, and these guys are just slaying you, and they're in so much better shape than you. And they sit there and they talk about old man strength, and I'll tell you, it's real. It's real to be careful with those other guys that live through multiple combat deployments, because they know what they're talking about, and they turn around and they teach you all those things. And to I didn't know what it was in the beginning, but after I graduated, and then a couple years after that, still training the things that they taught me, it's humbling, because you get to pass the torch that was passed to you.
Mm.
And that, to me, was, I mean, the whole Marine Corps was important, but everything from infantry squad leader course on was just fulfilling inside my soul.
Mm.
There's no other way to explain it.
That's awesome, man. That's really awesome. So you get back to your battalion after your course. What happens next?
So, getting back to battalion, they're talking about what the next deployment's going to be and planning out the next evolutions and how it's going to get done. So, I've got, from a gunnery sergeant, I had a staff sergeant filling a gunnery sergeant billet. They had me interim filling a section leader billet, which is a staff sergeant billet E6. But I was an E4, and because of what I did with that, I ended up, like I said, within 2 to 3 months becoming an E5 because of it. And it's just training for that type of
Mm-hmm.
deployment. So at that point, we were going, so it was 13th, 31st MU. Into Okinawa, we were going to be a force in readiness out there, and we were preparing for the jungle. So everything we were doing um, was in relations to the hills in the jungle, which is a whole nother type of hill. And what's crazy is, you do your workups, and I'll be honest with you, California is a beautiful place. Go to Bridgeport again, sucks, but still a beautiful place. You go to the jungle, man, that sucks. It's a totally different thing. It's so heavily vegetated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in the daytime, it's darkness. So here you are walking into these spiders that are like, oh, I can't even explain it to you, but it's just crazy out there. And then, you're forcing readiness, meaning we're cutting in the ocean, just doing circles, waiting for something to happen. Um, but yeah, it was, I can, in my opinion, uh, prepping for Iraq was one thing, but being able to prep others for,
Hmm.
that 31st MEU, just, or yeah, 31st MEU, it was it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun because now I got to destroy people the way that I got destroyed, meaning building them up. And then, you talk about destroying kids or destroying Marines, and I'm going to make a Marine out of you or a man out of you. And it was just a lot of fun. At the time, it's stressful because you're trying to hold the new standard, the standard that
Hmm.
nobody knows about, because not a lot of people get to go to these types of leadership schools. So when you come back, I'll be honest with you, not a lot of people like me, thought I was too hardcore, too gung ho, and to me, I didn't really care. And that's kind of the mindset or that is the mindset I carry now, because it's about making everybody around you better.
Yeah.
It's a team. They don't have to understand it, but
Hmm.
they're going to respect it. End of story.
Yeah. I think a lot of times if you're going to be the person who's holding standards and making others do hard things, right, they'll probably be a little resentful in that moment in particular. Hopefully though, after, thinking back and realizing their performance was elevated because of you, like, it's, I hope they turn to kind of fondness of those memories. So after this deployment, what happens next?
So after that second deployment, came back and they sent me to infantry unit leader course, another
Mm.
advanced infantry training battalion course. At that point, some weird things were happening to my body. I'd had some brain injuries already, and I want to say that, yeah, that third one was on my second deployment. I didn't really understand what was going on. Started having problems with my vision. They sent me to that unit leaders course, and I started having some problems, to say the least. Started drinking a lot more. You know, couldn't sleep. They started telling me I had insomnia, and one day I couldn't do pull-ups.
Mm.
I dislocated my ribs, or a couple ribs, fighting, doing McMap and training, things like that, and I started having some problems. Whatever, nobody cares. Push through it. But now some things that were ailing me started catching up a little bit, and I ended up getting in some trouble in the Marine Corps. Ended up getting a DUI because, again, you push, 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 push. You're
Hmm.
full throttle all the time, because that's how you get better and how you make people around you better. And one of the things about the Marine Corps is that, there's really no such thing as weakness
Hmm.
in the Marine Corps. You go and you do, and that's it. And even in getting out of the Marine Corps, you don't really show those things that may get on your nerves or that may have affected you. It's just more of, like I said earlier, mission, accomplish the mission. That's it.
Hmm.
So I get the DUI. I was already a sergeant for 3 years, which to me, I'm like, I'm on the fast track here, man. I'm going to be a meritorious staff. I'm going to freaking be a meritorious gunny. Let's go. I'm in for 20, and then I find out that I have petty mal seizures.
Mm.
And it wasn't really clicking because you don't remember them. And so I go to unit leader course, graduate honor squad, uh, just freaking awesome experience. Nowhere near infantry squad leader course, the original leadership course. But growing my resume, sent me to sergeant's course, growing my resume, and then the DUI happened after all of that, and we were creating our evolution for Afghanistan. And when I got the DUI, I was still full fledged. I had actually no, not a lot of people, not a lot of people know this, just the people that were NCOs, but I'll talk about it here, of course. I actually failed a rifle qual, and they passed me anyway. And I started having problems with my eyes. Didn't know what the heck was going on.
Hmm.
I couldn't see. And again, everybody that was around me that was leadership just was like, just shut up, okay? Just go see the doc, get it fixed, move on. Put some ice, take
Hmm.
some Motrin, change your socks. That's the answer to everything. Put some ice
Right.
in the dog, change your socks. And I had I talked to a few different doctors because I had to go to medical quite a bit for the eyes. And that was how they started sending me to all the different doctors, started missing a little bit of work, but everybody was like, look, you're good, man. Just make it happen. Get well, get it right. And I ended up first they were like, you have a couple of diseases, we can't seem to diagnose them. And I'm like, what? So at this point, we've already done a little more than half of an evolution
Mhm.
to for Afghanistan. And then I'm going through a divorce, my ex, the whole cheating thing, it's part of the Marine Corps. And that after that was when the DUI had happened. I was already having some PTSD things and the insomnia, like I said. But the eye disease kind of hit me, and that's when they hit me again with the petit mal, which happened a few months after Iraq, or I'm sorry, after the diagnosis for the eyes, which they said I had keratoconus and a couple other diseases that they couldn't diagnose. Ended up getting hooked up with a really good doctor there at Camp Pendleton because they have some great doctors who finally figured out what was going on and why I couldn't see as well anymore. Because it's keratoconus is a degenerative disease. Everything your eye turns into like a football size per se. Your cornea, the front of your eye.
Mhm.
So everything starts distorting and twisting. And instead of seeing one, I started seeing two. I started seeing three, and then things started to slowly kaleidoscope with my eyes, excuse me. And then right before that Afghanistan deployment, I'll never forget it. It was the petty mal, and they're like, Ryan, I don't know how to tell you this. I'm talking to my doctors, and they're like, we're red flagging you. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? They're like, you're done. And it's like, what do you mean I'm done? They're like, yeah, you cannot deploy. So here I am expected to fulfill my leadership responsibilities,
Yeah.
and I'm not telling anybody really about this except for my staff sergeant turned gunny at the time. And you don't talk to people about these types of things because
Mhm.
again, shut up and make it work, make it happen. That's just the mindset. And I'll never forget that because that was a very rough point in my life that hit me very hard. I felt that I let up a lot of people down.
Mhm.
I know I did, but it's kind of one of those things where what do you do? I mean, what can you really do? It wasn't me saying, "Hey, I'm out." It's them saying, "We're going to give," and they said, "I'll never forget this." We're having this conversation, and I don't even believe them. They're like, "We're going to give you a year to rehabilitate, and you're gone. You're going to be separated from the Marine Corps medically." And no shit, 1 year, I was medically retired from there. They sent me to be a patient out at Wounded Warrior Battalion for my last year in the Marine Corps, and I was gone after that. My guys
Wow.
deployed. They came right before they came back. I was processed out, or yeah, right, not even a week after they got back, I was processed out to the Wounded Warrior Battalion, and I'm on. As bad as it sucked, because I got busted down from the DUI. I was pending legal during that time frame. Um, it was a whole new humbling experience that I had to learn from. Because
Yeah.
my guys, some of the leadership team that I dealt with other platoons, because we were. Everybody, we're always coordinating, right? Different platoons
Mhm.
coordinate, leaderships and involved with leadership, and we're talking about things, planning things. Well, some of them were mad. They're like, "Hey, well, you're abandoning your guys," and I'm just like, "What?" So here I am, a sergeant talking to a staff sergeant. I'm like, you know what, staff sergeant, you can go fuck yourself. And it's kind of one of those things where even to this day you don't forget about it,
Yeah.
and it's something I had to live with because more good Marines died during that deployment, including some of my guys. And it's one of those things that you carry with you because there's always that what if, and again, it was part of my growth process because for about 4 or 5 years after that, and even certain things to this day, you don't really heal from, you
Yeah.
carry those people with you. And it's part of something that you don't talk about really, which is, of course, I'm going to share it here with you guys because the only way you grow is by talking about it,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that hold things in from friends of mine, good leadership leaders that killed themselves because they didn't talk about it.
Right.
So realistically, anyone listening, if you ever want to reach out, we're all available. I'm available. Talk to us. This isn't, as you can see, it hurts. It's personal.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Thank you for sharing, man.
yeah.
It
But again, together
really,
we all can go through it. We
mhm,
can all go
really
through it together.
important message. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I mean, as you were saying, I was just thinking like, damn, everything was just smacking you like personal and professional, right? Military, just all at the same time.
Mhm.
Um, that's a that's a wild time frame for you to have gone through again all at once. What was kind of the beginnings of you feeling those symptoms to the doctors actually diagnosing you? Like what, like even a range, like kind of how many months had passed?
So it started in Japan. Vision started fading, and that was around year three, 3.5 in the Marine Corps. Yeah, right, 3.5, because I reenlisted. Yeah, reenlisted when I got back. So yeah, right around year three, uh, I'd had problems with breathing because when you just look at a rib, you freaking know
Mm-hmm.
it's like this squeezing pain. But when I started to not be able to do pull-ups, it's like, well, then you start doing pull-ups by yourself and not around the platoon because you can't show weakness like that. You
Mm-hmm.
try to get better, and there's not really a lot that I could figure out at the time. There's nothing anyone could really tell me other than, hey, you need to rest it, ice your back. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So, in the morning before we PT, I'm going in to get iced and heat and then going and doing my thing and then icing again. But that was when the vision and um, the back stuff started really affecting me. And again, I didn't really notice the petit mal and the seizure symptoms until after I got back. Because I'll never forget, I was in class. I was teaching a class, and I just went blank. And the only reason I knew I was teaching a class is when I came back to, I was standing in front of everybody. But one of the other sergeants, great dude, oh man, really good dude. I hope he's doing well. But he was like, "Rod, are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why?" And he's like, "You're in the middle of a class, man. You want me to finish?" And it's like, we ended the class.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the whole going to the doctor and starting to piece things together, and then again with the ex-wife at the time going through those the cheating stuff, and then the alcohol, and trying to do what you can to make it through, and yeah, it was tough. It was really tough
Yeah.
because you're fighting battles that no one can really. Well, I'm sure other people went through their things. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something that we all just talked about openly. You know.
Right.
So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, totally understandable. And again, it's just a ton to have hit you at once. I also want to highlight because it sounds funny to kind of say that you didn't know what was happening, but like who would understand that? You know what I mean? Like if you were going through that, me, right? If I was going
mhm.
through that, like, I don't know what the hell's going on. I would just consider the same thing that you said, right? You just whatever, shake it off and then carry forward.
Yeah.
That's yeah, just wild. I'm glad that you were able to kind of come to a conclusion there at least. Or is there kind of a solution to that? Like, were you able to recover from the vision?
No. So after I was medically retired, I was actually retired for about 3 years, didn't do much. I
Mm,
was still in rehab after Wounded Warrior Battalion. I can't, so I take off these special lenses that are fitted over my full eye, and I can't see without them. I'm legally blind without them. So these help uh, keep my eyes from deforming the way that they're
mm,
made, because my eyes are deforming, or they're already deformed. But these I can only see specialists. They try to send me to doctors that are regular doctors, and they just don't know what to do with me because they've never seen anything like this. So I'm considered an
right.
advanced case. But long story short, they were like, "Hey, you can opt for surgery, but you only get 2 pairs of corneas." And I'm just like, "Whoa!" I mean, it hits you. It's real.
Yeah.
It's like you're telling me I'm
Yeah.
gonna have retinal detachment. They're like, "Yeah, at some point, yes. The only question is, can we slow it down enough?" So the lens fitting, which didn't even happen until I was in Wounded Warrior Battalion to help me see, because I'm not correctable with glasses.
Mhm.
That's when it was like, wow, I've got some problems. And then all the medication to help with the seizures, and then the things that would hook me up to have me refocus things in my brain. I mean, it's crazy. It's nuts actually. But I'm glad to have gotten through it. And then again, at the time, I was angry. I was
Yeah.
angry
Yeah.
because it's why? Why? I have a
Yeah.
promising career. I'm going far fast, and all this happens. And again, the takeaway didn't come till a few years later, which was,
Yeah.
I met my wife right after all this weird stuff started happening, and I had the divorce. And The way things turned out, I wouldn't change it for the world. The best thing that ever happened to me was me helping out my Marines, and because me getting a DUI all happened by me having someone not drive after talking them out of getting arrested because they were my guys. And I just said, "Hey, officer, I got it." Hauled everyone in the vehicle, and then just so happens I got pulled over. So, but
Wow, man.
again, at the time, and I knew it was crazy. I was chatting with a Marine the other day, and he's like, he said he was talking to a buddy of his, and we never talked about it, but he said, I was telling my buddy how I ruined this good Marine's career. He's talking about me. And I told him, I said, dude, I wouldn't change it for anything. In
Yeah.
fact, I want to thank you because, now here I am with Semper Fidelis Construction and Development. We're a federal construction company. We've got the nonprofit to help veterans. I have an amazing wife, amazing daughter, amazing son. I've had the chance to help other workers help restructure their life to the things that they couldn't think about or put it together. You know, I wouldn't want to be anywhere else because was I a
Yeah.
lifer? Yeah, I was a lifer. I was going to go 30 if they let me. But everything happened as it should. And
Yeah.
growing up, we always had faith, right? Probably right before the Marine Corps, that faith kind of slipped from me. But once I started getting past all of what I went through, I found faith again deeply, and it's part of my daily life. Prayer, worship, all that as a Catholic, and it's helped reshape who I am, who my family is, and I think the best part of every day for me is we get to pray together as a family every evening.
Mm.
You know, I I, I couldn't ask for more than what I have. So I guess to hear him say that takes me back, and all that anger that I went through, and all that regret that I felt. The depression that I went through, because you feel it's your fault. Someone
Yeah.
dies, it's like shit. That was my section.
Yeah.
I should have been leading them. But understanding what I understand now and being able to tell my story to people, to kids too, because I coached for a long time. And Texas Bombers has this thing called For the Heroes. And we got to honor Corporal Jeffrey Johnson with the jersey. And his family, we honored them with a jersey. And I got to tell their story to hundreds of kids that day at a tournament.
Mm.
And we got to talk about it all season with probably a couple thousand kids. And the biggest thing is sharing that message. It hurts. It hurts. I cried in front
Yeah.
of those kids, and they're probably looking at me and they don't get it. But you know what? They're going to remember it. And one day they're going to maybe understand. Maybe some of them will join the military and in turn give that story based on what they heard and understand that, hey, you know what? Sometimes you got to give yourself to something bigger, and then you've got to commit yourself, and good things are going to come.
Yeah, man. It's really special to be able to kind of share all of these hardships, right? That, a lot of things like the health, for example, is absolutely out of your hands, not your fault whatsoever. Couldn't do anything about it. And then to be able to, again, like I just said, share it and then overcome it, I think is really special, unique, and impactful to hear. And I'm sure anyone listening would agree. What was it like shifting from Marines to Wounded Warrior Battalion? Like, walk us through that process and kind of continuation to finish in service.
That was so crazy, in my opinion, because you go from a life of hard charging,
Mm-hmm.
balls to the wall, to, hey, Marines, every day they're giving us a brief, hey, Marines, your health is the mission. And I guess going from whatever, fuck that, we're pushing, we're going, pick it up and
Right.
let's go, to stop and get the help you need. I almost didn't even know how to do it.
Right.
They had assigned case managers to every so many of us, or I'm sorry, within a group, kind of like a section similar to the fleet. And they're making sure you go to your appointments.
Mm-hmm.
They're getting you to people that help you with therapy. They're getting you to, I'll never forget part of my therapy. So I had to go to this thing where they plug my brain in and I have to run a monitor with my mind, which would help with your brain exercises for the seizures as well as the medication. And then, from there I'd go to acupuncture. From there I'd get massages. From there I'd get my injections in my spine and my back. I mean, there was things that was wrong with me that you don't even think about it,
Yeah.
but they're telling you this is major, and it's like I'm moving, because that's the mindset, that's the core.
Right.
There's no dude that's there. That's not hard. They're all just a bunch of bad dudes getting things done. And it was very eye opening to me to cross over for that year because, now they're like, hey, part of your rehabilitation process is choose from this list of items. So I chose golf, because they're like, it's going to help with your flexibility. We can get you some stretching classes. And it's like, what? So now they're letting us golf, and it's a big deal. I never knew how much of a big deal it was till I got there. So now
Hmm.
they're sending me to golf with pros. I'm getting to go walk the courses with these guys and going to Torrey Pines and all these things to give to veterans that are in need. And it's kind of like, whoa, I'm that. You know what I mean? But you don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't. It's a tough pill to swallow, realistically,
Yeah.
because there's dudes that got both arms, both legs blown off. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It happens. You don't see them again until you get out. And people shot, legs blown off. Just you don't see them until much later on in life after you get
Hmm.
out. And I guess when I think of injuries, that's what I think of. So for
Right.
me, I'm not gonna lie, I felt very out of place. There
Hmm.
was a couple of other infantry guys, especially with 3-1, that were there, and they're like, "Hey, man, you gotta let that go. That this is it's time to get ready. You need to make your plan. Your new mission is what's next." And that's
Hmm.
the biggest thing over there is you get there and they're like, you need to start planning for what's next. And my question was like, hey, is there a way to go back? How do you get back to the fleet? And they're like, you don't. You're flagged. It's over. And I guess that's the toughest thing is, we're looking for
Yeah.
ways to go back. And so then I started focusing in school. I got my bachelor's degree in organizational management with a minor in entrepreneurship. And then after I got out of the Marine Corps, I went back to my master's. And then I was 2 classes shy, I didn't finish. But yeah, so
Hmm.
that was it.
So, yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're basically given the complete opposite mindset when you make that
Yeah,
shift into Wounded Warrior Battalion, and really every conceivable way, it's like the complete
yeah.
opposite. So, yeah, I can imagine that being an absolute, mind fuck, really, to reconfigure the brain. That said, do you think that? I mean, it was a year, right? So it's not like it's relatively substantial amount of time. I'm guessing, and obviously, just correct me if I'm wrong, that was supportive in kind of transitioning out into civilian life.
You know, if that hadn't happened, I don't even know how I would have transitioned the
Right.
way I did, to be honest with you, because there's just so many resources for you there. I mean, they have Semper Fi Fund, amazing, just
Mm-hmm.
amazing. They'll donate golf clubs and bikes for your head, for whatever your accessibility need is. Wounded Warrior Project donates so much to this Wounded Warrior Battalion. They're embedded in it. Um, Vets to Feds at the time, uh, they wanted me to come get a top secret clearance that they were going to pay for. And then same thing, this other company that's embedded with Wounded Warrior Battalion. I can't remember. It was troops to. I can't remember, but they wanted to hire me as a VP for Chase Bank out in New York. I mean, it's crazy because and this crossed my mind because I mean, it sucks to get out, but at the same time, you start thinking about
Mm-hmm.
everything you went through, everything you had planned, and everything just changes. And then you have to make a new plan, and then you're like, "Can I work at a bank? You know, uh, do I really want to make computer chips on a base? You know, what are you? What
Mm-hmm.
are you at that point?" And that was my biggest thing is, I'm chatting there with my wife, and it's like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a coyote for the border patrol. They rejected. They wanted me, but then they rejected me when they found out, of course, about my
Mm-hmm.
eyes and the seizures, and I wasn't cleared medically. They took away my license, all that stuff, and I wanted to keep doing what I was doing. I enjoyed the hunt, the
Yeah.
fight, and that's going back to infantry squad leader course. Stay in the fight. That's the
Mm-hmm.
motto. Rule number 1, get in the fight. Rule number 2, stay in the fight. Rule number 3, stay in the fight. That's all we ever did.
Yeah.
And yeah, so when I got out, I didn't do anything for a while. That was probably the best thing that I did, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I ended up turning down those jobs, um, which I don't regret because my daughter was with my ex-wife. and I needed to be with her because I hadn't been with her the first, 4 or 5 years of her life, and it was time for me to be there. And that's why I turned down those jobs. And then
Mhm.
I got the chance to decompress, to really decompress. And it was a terrible period of my life because I gained a lot of weight. I was on a lot of medication. I no longer had the services that I had anymore with Wounded Warrior Battalion. And that's when I started to learn what the VA really is.
Mhm.
This was before all the lawsuits and stuff like that happened with them for, not doing enough for veterans. And then they had an outreach about 5 years after that of doing more for veterans because of all the hot water they were in for what they didn't do. And yeah, I kind of had to re-establish me because nobody liked me. Once again, I was on edge. I
Yeah.
was angry. I was depressed. I mean, and it all goes back to what I went through with one thing in mind is I couldn't be there for my guys. And again, tough pill to swallow, even to this day. But again, it's I have that conversation a lot with veterans, even with veterans that reach out, and it's just we do what we can with what we have, and the most important thing is giving back to those in need, without
Mhm.
question. And that's something that really changes your life once you gain faith in God and understand that there's some greater purpose than yourself. So,
So, so what were some things that kind of pulled you out of that state that helped you kind of move forward?
so faith, number one,
Mm.
and right next to that was my wife because she saw me change. She saw me when I was at my best. She saw me when I was at my worst,
Mhm.
and she saw me when I fell into a new worst. And even throughout all of that, she helped pull me out of all those phases in life because I'll be honest with you, there's times in my life that I was just an asshole and a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Again, even after I said I'd never be that again because I'm a Marine, honor, courage, commitment. And, you fall into certain things because depression is a crazy thing, man.
Yeah.
It'll consume you. And when
Yeah.
things consume you like that, the darkness consume you. And when that consumes you, things happen that you wouldn't think would happen.
Yeah.
Things that you're better than, but it happens. And without my wife, honestly, I couldn't have found God the way that I did and pulled myself out and have her help pull me out because it wasn't just me and it wasn't just her, but I needed that team to help slap me in the face to just say, wake the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I did. I did. And it's, again, all glory to God now because without that, without finding that and having that support system after everything, I wouldn't be here today. I was in a very dark place, and I know you know
Mhm.
what I mean. So it's real, and I'm sure it happens to probably 80-90% of veterans, especially combat veterans, and or even non-combat veterans, because people go through shit even non-combatants.
Mhm.
Some of them join the military and they don't ask for combat, and they still end up in a combat situation. So it's not to take away from them, but I know my fellow brothers to see them kill themselves and read about it, and then be killed here in the U.S. It's like, man, dude, we didn't do this shit for this, man. What the
Yeah.
fuck?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard. And then to get the phone calls and get the text messages and the news snippets, it's like, man,
Yeah.
I think it hits home the older we get because it never goes away. It happened 2 years out, 4 years out, 7 years out. I'm out. I got out in 2012. I'm 12 years out now. And it happened a few years ago. And it's like
Yeah.
the monster doesn't go away unless you have support. And
Yeah.
and that's one of the biggest things if anyone's listening is like I said, there's people out there, there's nonprofits out there. I mean, shit, if I could ever be of assistance, please call me. My company's out there and I know it's business, but you know what? We can talk about non-business any day of the week when it comes to veterans.
Yeah.
Because been there, done that. It sucks. And I hate for anyone to go through it because there's people that I've talked to that are in dark places and they just need you to listen. They don't even
Yeah.
necessarily need you to say anything. But when the
Yeah.
time is right and you need to get involved, then you say something. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, you kind of touched on it before when you were, just sharing your story, and you said, it's hard to talk about, but you need to talk about it in order to kind of acknowledge it and overcome it, move on from it, help yourself from it, etc. So, with that, I was going to that could be, that could be your answer. You could double down on that, or just give another answer. Whatever comes to mind is, I was going to ask any kind of advice you'd give to other vets that are, active duty, that are transitioning to civilian life right now, on that transition period, military to civilian?
Here's the biggest thing right here is you've got to keep your mind busy. You
Mm,
have to keep your mind busy. You need to have goals before you get out. They send you to TAP and TAMPS. They may have changed the name. I don't know, but it's like a 30-day period right before you get out. Nowhere near enough of what you need before you get out, because basically that's just giving you a 30-day period to kind of decompress, which is not enough. But
right.
there's a lot of resources out there. I talk to a lot of veterans who don't use their GI Bill. I'm going to be the first to tell you this. To me, school is a joke, complete joke.
Hmm.
But you know what, veterans out there, if the GI Bill pays you to go to school, do it.
Yeah.
Because what is the extra income and getting that piece of paper that realistically to me doesn't mean much? But you know what? Checking the box, got paid. What's next? Keep your
Yeah.
mind focused on something. You cannot get out and do nothing, because that will eat you alive. It ate me alive even just getting my bachelor's degree, because I mean, luckily I had that to focus on, because once that ended, I still had everything that I was going through, every year, the anniversaries of deaths and,
Yeah.
my own things, anniversaries, and then dealing with issues from the past, exes, things like that. It's a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
for anybody. So the truth is a lot of veterans are going to go through that on the way out. But keep your mind busy. Always want to get better. Always want to get better, and that's one of the biggest things. And you just with the whole keeping your mind focused thing, you got to read books or listen to audio books. If the way I explain it, even to my team now, is if you're not doing something to grow yourself, you're dying. Even in business, you're not doing something to better yourself, you're dying.
Hmm.
If you have the mentality of I know it all, you're not going to make it, man. You're not going to make it. So you've got to be and I'm lucky to have had this type of mentorship early on in the Marine Corps. Staff Sergeant Barrett, will never forget him. Uh, you always have to have the mentality of learning. You have to grow with life, or
Hmm.
life will step all over you, and they will. And yeah, that would be my biggest thing to veterans getting out is one, you have help. You just have to find the right outlet. Google is a powerful tool. And two, just keep your mind focused on growth. Growth mindset will help you get out of the ruts, not completely, but enough to help you maintain your focus to have multiple avenues of things to help you get back on track. So
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. So you do your first degree, you're doing your second, your master's, you're kind of in the finishing stages of that. I think that's kind of where we last left off in your story.
yeah, so I was two classes shy of my master's degree. I was so sick of it. It was just such a joke.
Listen,
And I
I hear
hate
you,
to
man.
say that. I hate to say it because it was easy, but in it, and then I had another vendor call me out when we were talking. He's like, "It was so easy. Why didn't you finish?" I was like, "Well, great question. But I just don't really care for it anymore. I barely care for my bachelor's, much less my master's. But realistically, and I told my wife this, I said, I'm getting my bachelor for my daughter,
Mhm.
just to set the precedence of this is what we do. This is who we are. I did it. There's no reason for you not to do it. Um, the master's was more of I didn't know what the hell I was going to do. I sold guns for a little while with Dick's Sporting Goods. That was atrocious. I love guns. That was my therapy is guns and golf. Winter
Mhm.
War Battalion really got me big on golf, and those were my outlets at the time. But I couldn't work with anybody. I was bumping heads with the manager there at Dick's. I ended up. What else did I do? Can't even remember anymore. I know there was two other little small jobs that I did, but that were minute. But I couldn't get along with anybody.
Mhm.
I was a marshal at a golf course for a while just to play some free golf, and I got tired of that because just sitting there doing nothing, just like being retired. I was already doing nothing, and then became a real estate agent because it's like, man, I really just can't work with anybody. Like I was having a hard time. I was again angry, snapping at people. People who just don't think about what they're doing. Managers are telling you
Yeah.
what to do, and it's like, dude, if you did it this way, it's that much more effective. And then they're talking to you like you're nothing because they're your supervisor, and it's kind of like, oof,
Yeah.
after all you've been through, you're like, all right, this ain't gonna work for me. And then it's more of us sparing them versus anything else. So when I did real estate, I started doing a little bit of woodwork and started bumping elbows with people in construction. And I got into wholesaling and I started realizing how much money's involved in construction and to include wholesaling. And Um, Ended up getting involved in a company from wholesaling because you're acquiring a contract, selling the contract for more. Great way to make money, by the way. Real estate is just prime for anything as long as you have the hustle in you, which realistically,
Mhm.
people in construction or people getting out of the Marine Corps, that those that have the hustle factor, some don't, but those that do, it's a great way to make money. Acquired a business, and that's kind of when I started turning businesses around. And I was building a company out of that. I was building another company out of that, and then I was helping somebody else with a builder program for real estate and getting embedded with all these new build construction companies. And an offer came across the table. I did a favor for someone. This is crazy. Um, Long story short, after I did this favor, they offered, "Hey, you know what? We'd like for you to come do some work for the VA." And I'm like, "Doing what?" They're like, special adaptive housing. What you do is you make homes specially adaptive to
Mhm.
disabled veterans with the VA. And I was like, let's do it.
Yeah.
Because at that point, I kind of fast forwarded. I was already 4 or 5 years in with businesses and standing things up, developing programs, creating new programs, moving to something else. And it kind of just became again, here we are, something bigger, something better, and always trying to keep going with it. And
Mhm.
when this came across, I stood up a company from it, and that's how Semper Fidelis Construction Development became what it is. And
Hmm.
just crazy, completely backwards, because most people start with small stuff and build it. I landed full blown contract, and yeah, so
That's great how you came up with the name for the purpose of what your first contract in building was. That's awesome, man.
yeah, it's the 210 number came from that because they're like, hey, you're going to need a 210 number to for whatever area code you're primarily focused in. And, San Antonio had the predominant selection. So I had a 210 number, even though we're an 830 area code in New Braunfels. Everybody always asks me about that. And I just give them the short version, which is, VA at the time, blah, blah, blah. So, but yeah, it's a pretty cool story. When I started doing that, we had contracts. 38,000, 68,000, 128,000, and then started doing some patios just to kind of build outside of that.
Mhm.
And right at that time is when COVID kicked off. So, we're doing work for the VA, started to branch out. We were considered essential personnel, so we could still commute. That
Mhm.
was great driving without traffic back then. But yeah, I'll never forget that. It was like, oh yeah, I can get to deep San Antonio in like 20 minutes from the Braunfels, when really it's like 50.
Right.
But yeah, no, it's learned a lot from construction, and I think what really attracted me most was the chaos of construction.
Mm.
It's so similar to the daily grind of infantry
Mhm.
that it's home to me. There's always a problem to fix. And then there's always a solution to make sure it doesn't happen again. And that's really what started to pull me in. That, and of course, not being able to work with people. I work, be my own boss type thing, and subcontract people or hire people to do work. And yeah, that's now here we are.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome, man. How did going back to kind of the beginnings of I'll call it ramping up to where you're at today. How did you learn or understand how to even get started?
I a lot of it just had to do with the VA. I jumped in just completely never doing this. But again, real estate, never done it. Developed a builder program, never done it. Stood up a restaurant and club, never done it. And they all became successful avenues. So with this, when the option presented itself, that's me. My family thinks I'm crazy. They've always thought I was crazy because it's one thing and then move on, one thing, move on. But that's the whole entrepreneurship thing, and why that
Right.
degree was like, I get to do something, I get to build something, and I get to leave it behind if I wanted to, or keep it. And that's what attracted me most to that. So, but gearing up for what we are now, I always had the mindset of big. It was always, we'll get it done. I'll get it done. It's gonna happen.
Mm.
We're gonna make it work. And with construction, I mean, my goodness, that it was a monster. This was the hardest thing that ever stood up. There's no doubt, because you no longer have the chaos of just what is in front of you. You have the chaos of people bringing chaos to you. Because I say this almost every day to my people in the office, as well as any people that we train, is construction easy. It's the people that make it hard.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that is, I hate to say it, it's almost the heartbeat of construction, because you learn how to deal with people. One, managing
Right.
the expectation with the customer, and two, turning around and setting the standard for a subcontractor or worker. And
Mm-hmm.
those are two different everything. And if you don't manage either one of those two, it will cripple you. It will cripple you. So, um, yeah, that's why I love construction.
Yeah, like what you said early on in our conversation is just do what you said you're going to do, and that'll
That's it.
that'll do a lot for you downstream, right? That'll allow you to get a lot done in a good way. That's a
Absolutely.
great line, man.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've fired people over it, a lot of people over it, because it's who are we if we don't do what we say we're going to do?
Yeah,
That's it. That's a basis to lean on.
yeah,
So those,
resonates with me fully, man. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah, it's good to hear. Yeah. So it's not enough of
So
it, in my opinion.
yeah, so in terms of like advice and how what you would give someone to kind of start that process of, I don't know, establishing a business and then selling it, or just establishing it, whatever of that scenario that you went through a few times. What kind of advice would you give?
For starting up a new company,
Yeah.
is that what you're asking? Just do it, man. I mean, you've already been given the tools. The majority of veterans have already been given the tools.
Mm,
It just takes action. That's it. And the beautiful thing about the Marine Corps is that it is massive action at all times. It's, again, mission, execution. There's nothing in between.
hmm
Nobody cares. Get it done. So, for Marines, I talk to a lot of, or not a lot of them, but anytime I run into infantrymen, they do start their own businesses, and that's great to
hmm
hear, because they're just doing it.
Yeah.
You have to dive in. You have to take that first step. So to me, talking to anybody is, one, create a plan, two, execute. That's it. That's all it comes down to. But you can't give in to the people around you, because, once again, so many people said I'd never do it. So many
Yeah.
people said, "Oh, you're terrible," or "Oh, how are you going to do this? You don't even have the money. You don't even." It doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, we'll figure it out. And
Yeah.
that's the thing, is I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what I said I was going to do. That's it.
That's awesome, man.
So
So I want to segue that into translatable skills, and it could be what you just said, but in case you have any others that come to mind, military to civilian profession.
translatable skills.
hmm
Is that, oh goodness, that's a good one. So, man, I swear, when I first applied for jobs when I got out, everybody's like, "Yeah, but you were infantry. How does that even correlate to what we're talking about?" And it's like, how does it not correlate into what we're talking
Exactly.
about? And this is the best way I can put this into perspective for everybody out there. And I think I said this earlier. I had people with master's degrees and bachelor's degrees fighting over $15 to $20 an hour on this last cycle of hiring that we did.
hmm
And I didn't even hire any of them. The people I hired didn't have degrees, because at the end of the day, it came down to doers. I'm here to work with doers. There's people that think about things, and then there's people that do things. And that's why, to me, I would push anyone that is military to start their own business. You've
mm
already been given the tools. You've already gone through the process. You've been told what to do, where to be, how to do it. What more do you need? You know, um, the average military person goes through more than the civilian in regards to any type of training or discipline. Make it happen. So when we talk about transferable skills, to me, it's like, go start your own company, do what you said you're going to do, use that GI Bill, use the resources out there for the funding, that grants that people are willing to throw at you
hmm
for being a veteran, and especially depending on your state, because I know the state of Texas here, they take care of us. We have Hazelwood Act. So because of my combat action ribbon, my wife can go to school for free, my kids go to school for free at any state college, and that's just the
mm
beginning. So you have to use the resources out there. So don't get too tied up in saying, "Oh, well, I was infantry and I can't do this." It doesn't matter what anybody says. Go out
Yeah.
there and do it, because you can. You can. You just have to take the first step, which is the hardest step, believing in
Right.
yourself and making it happen. But you can do
Yeah.
it.
Well said, man. I like that point of just, actually leveraging resources that exist. I think not enough people do that. And
No.
it's so easy. I mean, yeah, granted, it'll take you a few minutes to send in an application or whatever. It's there. You got to just take advantage of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy because I mean, I just had this conversation with my daughter last night because, she's having some issues with a recruiter. And I was like, who's in charge of you? Is he in charge of your life? He's like, no. Who's in charge of your life? I am. Are you? Well, okay, so you're not. So be in charge of your life and make it happen.
Hmm.
These are the conversations we have because, again, being real with someone is the best thing you can do for somebody because, believe it or not, and going back to the transferable skills, being real as a skill is so important because so many people that I deal with every day, yeah, they think I'm an asshole. I'm an asshole. They think that. But it's kind of like, because I told you the truth, because I told you what other people won't tell you, because I gave it to you real, okay, then I'm an asshole. I don't even care. Because at the end of the day, guess what? A lot of these people that I dealt with in the past call me back. Hey, Ryan, what do you think of this? Hey, how would you advise this? And believe it or not, man, probably 20% of my day is set up as an advisory role, just in people calling me and wanting mindset. And I'm open to talk to any veteran, which is why I say that here, because I do it even
Hmm.
with non-veterans that ask for help. Because you know what? It takes a lot to ask for help.
Yeah.
It takes someone a lot to ask for help. Why? I don't know. I guess it's a pride thing. Well, actually, it is a pride thing because
Yeah,
I
it
know
is.
because I couldn't do it, but I guess that was my cross to carry back then that I had to get over myself and say I needed help. I needed help. Went to PTSD classes. I needed help.
Hmm.
Uh, it is what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well said, man. So what point did Dustoff happen, your nonprofit?
oh wow, yes, great. So about year two, I started seeing some. Oh, it's just terrible what I was seeing. So I'll never forget this. We finished the house. First one I'd ever done. No one had ever tried me to do this, but the gentleman was a paraplegic, and I created a bunch of voice activated doors, lighting system, all that stuff in his house because he couldn't really move. So
Hmm.
we had a railing system set up for him, all that stuff. And when I started seeing the shortcomings, because there were times even working with the VA where it's like, you know what, I'm about to eat some cost because what they're giving is just not enough money. But when I was working with this gentleman in particular versus what they gave him versus what it really cost and what they had to pay, aside from the fact because I can't cover 60, 70, 80,000. I,
Right.
I wish I could, but I can't because to help a fellow veteran that's in need like that, the resource should be there. And
Hmm.
and and with what the VA offers versus what is, it's kind of like even other veterans, they'll offer like 6,000 for handicap accessibility for a house or a bathroom or modification of some sort. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
And then you've got people missing arms and legs that don't get the rating that they deserve, right? And these guys are getting less than that, and it's disgusting to me. It
Yeah.
really is. And that's when it started to get real personal around year two, after seeing a few of these projects go through and meeting other veterans who were declined SAH help, who were asking me for resources, and I'll point them out to one of Warrior Project, Semper Five Fund, or maybe American Legion, things like that. Depending on their avenue or branch of service, and I started creating connections that have grown to this day. But at the end of the day, it was just like I have to do something. I have to do something. And at the end of year two, we had a great year. I mean, we'd grossed around 980,000 before profit, and um, year three was complete chaos. But it was something where this is in mind. This has to happen, right? Year four, I actually put it, or actually year three and a half, early year four, I put it into play and stand up the nonprofits. Like, Ryan, shut up and take action, man. I know you're busy, but stop making excuses. Because again, get it done. So stand it up, don't get really, it's just the first step, right? So here I am getting pulled in a different direction. Around that time is when I get a phone call from someone on Facebook, through the messenger app on my page. And a gentleman's like, hey man, I really like your work. I want you to come out and bid a project for me. Let's have some lunch. So this gentleman he was a federal company. He was a prime contractor, which is direct to government. And we met, we chatted, and he's like, oh, you ever thought about doing federal work? Because your work's really good. And I'm like, yeah, at the time, I didn't even know there was such a thing. You don't think about it. I'm
Yeah.
over here just trying to grow, going from a patio to a kitchen to a bathroom, trying to get the full home remodel, right?
Mm-hmm.
And around year three is when I started landing the 150, $200,000 jobs. And, so we start bidding these projects, then we win one. And that was right at, God, I can't even remember anymore. I think it was for 3.5, 4. I can't remember. But we're a little over almost 5.5 years right now. And so we win that contract, do good work, get out of there. There's some complex things that happen on that side. We figure it out for them. And mind you, we're still young in construction, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So we're getting these great reviews, and we're getting these what do they call it? QR. I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a reference sheet that they give you for federal. That,
Mm-hmm.
hey, you turn this into somebody else, and it's gold because they're willing to put their neck out for you moving forward. And then now all these prime contractors are calling me and wanting us to bid work in Texas, outside of Texas, and I'm like, whoa, this is real, real. And I'm over here perfecting my craft, trying to get business right, because at right about the 2.5 year mark is when I realized I can't do this anymore. I can no longer put my hands on these tools. I have to be a business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And when I made that decision, which is right before that government entity reached out, I started putting, pieces in place, hiring different people, going through people left and right because, not everybody works out. And I took a step back. I had to because I remember, I'll never forget when I was doing the bids for that company. I was working till like 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning, sleeping in the office for like 2 hours, and then getting back to work and getting on the road again to go inspect my sites. And I was like, after finishing the project with this company, I'm like, I'm so much better than this. I can do so much better than that. I just went through a federal project in about 3.5 years in this company, seeing how they do it versus how I was already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like,
Yep.
no, I can do this. So I applied for my prime status. We got it. Took about 5, 6 months. So right about year four is when we got it. And I've never looked back because we are a service disabled veteran owned business, which is a badge designator for the company that allows us to uh, bid on jobs that not everybody can bid on. So,
Mm-hmm.
there's for the set aside, they call it a set aside. So the prime contractor throughout the United States, right? Prime contractor can bid direct to the government. And they bid when they go to a $5 million bid, it's probably like 40, 50, 60, 80 contractors, right? When I go to that type of bid as an SDVOSB, I'm looking at like 10 at most on this bid because
Mm-hmm.
there's not a lot of us because we're all combat injury retired veterans. So with that designator, it opens a lot of doors for us and
Sure.
allows us the bid pool to be more competitive. And right after we started bidding about the 4.5 year mark, and now we are on 2 federal projects as we speak.
It's
So
amazing, man.
it's just been yeah, it's and again, every step of the way, you can't do it. It can't get done. Even when we were bidding, oh, you can't win it. You don't even have the money to do this. How are you going to get bonded? Your credit score, blah, blah. And then it's like when we got it, if you had seen the phone calls and the text messages and the hey, I heard you got yeah. Hey, you're converting to yeah. The same guys that said that the same people I fired that said we couldn't do it were asking to work with us again. And it's like, no, I'm good. Thank you.
That's
So
awesome, man.
yeah,
That's amazing. So you
yeah.
were given the context, which was awesome to hear for kind of how you got started with Dustoff. So I guess it was in that federal, when you
Oh,
started
sorry.
ramping up with federal
Yes.
projects. No, not at all, man. That was
Yes, yes,
that was
yes.
awesome to hear kind of how you ramped up. I mean, really awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, special adaptive housing is what got me into that and really made me open my eyes to all of this. But
Mm-hmm.
right at year four is when we started taking a little bit more steps. Took about a 6 month hiatus because we had so much going on. And then got to give a shout out to Rebecca because she's been amazing. She's been my operations manager and she is stellar. By far the greatest hire I've ever had. Right after that is Carrie Ann, who has helped me manage, well, of course, Rebecca too, manage Project Dustoff.
Mm-hmm.
And it has been fun. We haven't been able to get out there as much, but at least now that we have a presence out there, going to events, sponsoring other veterans. It's been fun. It's my goals for the company originally were, oh man, we're going to do this. We're going to become federal. We're going to make it happen. We're going to spread through the U.S. I had a conversation with an investor who wanted to throw money at the company, and he's like, "What's your 5-year plan?" I laughed because I already knew exactly what he was going to say when I said it. I said, my 5-year plan is to give back with Project Dustoff and stand that up nationally. And he's like, "What?" He's like, "What about your company?" And I said, "I'm not worried about the company. The company's already it's already on course.
Yeah.
There really isn't anything that at this point that, with God as witness and guiding me every step of the way and my company, there is nothing that can stop us. The trajectory and even the map out for the next 48 months, it's unbelievable, especially because since the jobs keep getting bigger each project we land.
Hmm.
But again, it wasn't until I took a step back when I said, and it turned from mission to who am I if I can't help others in this journey? Because in
Hmm.
learning to give back is when I learned how to heal. In learning to put others first is when I learned a lot more about myself than I could have. Because there's me that's the Marine still, but then there's me who has grown into so much more than that because of my failures, because of my shortcomings, and because of having faith in God and understanding the power of prayer.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Give us the mission statement of Project Dustoff.
To help veterans in need with their disabilities as well as their families. Right now, we are chatting with Lucy Wilson, and actually, we just dropped off her tub for her at her house about a week and a half ago. And I told her, I said, "Look, we're working on getting to you. But of course, we're a little overextended with the federal project we have going on, and we're going to get to you in the next 45 days." But her father was a United States Air Force retiree. She hasn't had any help financially, and she's in a little bit of a bind. And we committed to helping her, so she's going to get a full handicap accessible shower because she'd broken her hip, and she just doesn't, she can't make ends meet in that aspect. So I told her, you know what, I want to help you. We are going to take care of you. And in doing things like that, not just for veterans' families that are in need because their families all passed on, but doing that for veterans that don't have any other options. Because again,
Hmm.
I've toured houses of veterans, they're by themselves, no legs, one arm, missing an arm. They can't afford it. They live off of
Yeah.
their disability income and whatever minimal retirement that they're probably getting, because realistically, if they're older, they're not getting the benefit amount that they should be getting, which again,
Yeah.
I'll chat with them and I'll send them to a resource that they need to talk to get their benefit. Because I'll open up that tough conversation and say, "Hey, you know what? I've been there. I understand. Let me help you."
Hmm.
But in giving back like that, that's the only way. Because I've had this conversation even with my team, is it's blindlessly giving.
Hmm.
You have to blindlessly give because the money will come. We can't worry about the money. We have to worry about the
Yeah.
person. Give to the person. Give in a way that there's nothing you expect in return. Because in turn, they're
Mm.
going to give to somebody that needed. And that is how the chain keeps going. That's what's supposed to happen. If we all just helped each other more, we'd all be in a better place, not just in the state or as a country, but as multiple countries combined, realistically.
Hmm.
So the way I feel about it is this is my purpose. Originally my goals were, hey, Semper Fidelis, let's go mission. But as I grew with God and as I grew as a man, and I can still say that because again, learning all the time and
Hmm.
wanting to get better, my purpose is to give back. And that's what Project Dustoff.
That's amazing, man. And it sounds like that's in generally speaking, it's in its beginnings, right? In its infancy, a few years only.
Yes. Yes, yes.
Awesome.
So we've really not dived fully into it until this past 4 months, which is when we really
Amazing.
started scheduling events, making these happen. We're looking for people to be on the board. We're looking for people that want to volunteer. So
Mm.
anybody out there, projectdustoff.org, you'll see us with the helicopter there with we'll probably have the little crayon box dangling 'cause I think it's hilarious. They gave me a shirt about that to celebrate us taking action because it's been something that I've been wanting to do and really focus on, but I really haven't been in the position to do it because it's hard to find good people, and
Yeah.
that's why I say with Rebecca and Carrie Ann, having these people alone, much less Richard, my foreman, it's allowed me to really, again, focus on being a business owner and growing the business. and make things happen, which in turn is Project Dustoff, the future of all of this.
That's awesome, man. I'm excited to see both of those grow. Your company and also your nonprofit are both are going to be in the show notes, links to the websites.
I appreciate
So
that.
absolutely, man. Happy to share. Happy to help grow it.
Thank you. Thank you.
So absolutely, man. My pleasure. Closing out the show, we got our final two questions. We'll start off with any book or books you'd like to recommend to the audience.
Oh my goodness. Yes. This book changed my life. Buy Back Your Time by Dan Martell. Okay. So
Mm,
this was an early business book with starting up Semper Fidelis. And I've gone through it about at least 5 times, at least five that I can count. And the last time I read it, I had my biggest takeaway from it. And that's what helped me hire my best hire, which is Rebecca. And it helped me really focus on what my pain point is and how to grow from it and create that plan. Because again, you don't
mm,
know what you don't know. And that's the hardest thing and why people have to ask for help. And
yeah.
and even to this day, I look for people that will help me grow because that's what this is about. Because
Mm,
you know what? Help me, help them. Because they help me, I'm gonna help somebody else. But I don't know what I don't know, and I know that. I get that. But that book was so influential to me and with the company. And like I said, every time I read it, it's just something to take away more from it. The Four Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive by Patrick Lencioni. Again, it's a storytelling book. It just gives you different scenarios of two different types
mm,
of companies at different stages and scales in their business, and the compare contrast and allowing you to analyze your own version as well as their summary. It's gold. It's gold for a business owner. GovCon GovCon launch, excuse me, helped me understand the federal world more because
mm,
let's face it, nobody's going to train you for this.
yeah.
Nobody's going to even help you with this because who wants to bid against more people? Now, if anyone called me and asked me for it, I'd absolutely help them with it. So anybody out there wanted to looking to get into federal contracting, I'll absolutely lend that hand because I'll tell you this, nobody trained me. Nobody taught me anything. Everybody held it in like a secret, which is terrible in my opinion, because again, help others to help others.
Mm-hmm.
Headstrong and Unstoppable, two great books, helped me turn my life around after my depression period because it helped me get into ketosis, and that really changed my outlook on the way I eat. I lost tons of weight from it. Yeah, used to be bigger, believe it or not, and it's helped me really just set my brain on fire because there's points in time, there's points in business where you're going, you're going, you're going, you're going, you're going, and you're like, I can't do this anymore. And that's when you really have to prioritize your health. You have
Mm-hmm.
to, but in doing that, it is what you eat, it is how you sleep. And ketosis was the best thing for me because I can eat all the meat and cheese that I want, and I won't even gain weight from it. I'll just turn my body into a fat burning machine versus a sugar burner, is what we call it. So, yeah, there's a lot out there, but everybody's different, different points of life, different points of business. Again, educate yourself by just getting out there and finding something that just triggers your mind, something you want to learn.
Yeah.
So,
Those are awesome recommendations, man. I'm going to put a few of those on my list for sure. Those books will also be in the show notes. And I'll take that last book recommendation and segue into our last question, which is what is your wellness practice? What does that look like for you?
I pray daily. I
Mm,
meditate at least every other day. My spirituality is very important to me. It's very important to my family and all of us as a whole. That's my biggest thing and what's helped change me. Uh, I don't even know if you can see my treadmill right here on the left side. I can't really tell from my screen, but I'll walk at least 30 minutes a day
mm-hmm.
with the goal of walking for at least an hour. Um, During the weekdays, not so much the weekend. Weekend, I kind of just take time to relax. But walking's been big because everybody's like, "Oh, how'd you lose weight?" Well, keto's one thing, but walking at a low pace is a whole nother thing. Keeping the
Mm-hmm.
heartbeat low, it burns fat so crazy. So it's not running, everybody. That's cardio that builds your heart. To burn fat, you gotta walk low and slow. Keto, like I said, and golf and shooting. I mean, those are pretty much my habits and hobbies. Love guns, buy lots of guns. Well, I have lots of guns. Everybody has guns in my house. My son 7, he's got like 3 guns. My wife's got some, my daughter, me, I've got so many. I love it. And then I wish I made more time for golf, but when I do get a chance, I want to go. So anybody ever wants to go, hey, give me a holler, man. You want to talk about anything? Let's talk over golf. It's always therapeutic to get out there and just hit a
Mm-hmm.
good one every once in a while.
Yeah. Well said, man. I love how you bring up that spiritual element, the mental element, because I think a lot of times that gets overlooked, both of those. And then of course walking, right? I mean, it's so easy, and that also just gets overlooked. And
Yeah.
it also, I don't know if this happens for you. It helps me think a lot too.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. What I
Yeah.
do, my morning session, honestly, is when I walk on the treadmill, I'll have my tablet that I'm holding because again, I'm trying to walk low and slow, and I'm
Yeah.
looking for government bids. I'm looking for federal bids. I'm scanning over everything, and the hour flies by like that when I'm on it.
That's
So,
great.
and if not, I get a phone call sometimes at 7 a.m. and I'm taking a call while I'm walking. Stop making excuses and just prioritize your health. You don't want to be diabetic. You don't want to
Yeah.
be all those things that happen. So with age, anyway.
Yeah. Well said, man. Well said. Well, Ryan, this was a real pleasure. I really appreciate you going into depth, sharing your story. I learned a lot. I'm sure our listeners will have lots of takeaways. Thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And veteran concealment out there, just want to give them a quick shout out.
Mm.
Great people, great company. Uh, we've got to sponsor them quite a bit, but if you get the chance to talk to him, hey, he's good stuff. He's a good dude. So, but thank you everybody out for watching again. Hopefully you gain something from this because there's nothing wrong with asking for help.
Well said, man. Well said. All right, everyone. Thank you to our channel sponsors, Jet.Build. If you're looking for ways to better manage your real estate development and construction projects, look no further. Jet is the command center software for end-to-end real estate development and construction management. That's www.jet.build.